you say there's a certain like recovery period needed for people to regain their spiritual equilibrium after leaving traditionalism? Like, how is that for you and your family?
Yes. Oh, yes, definitely. Because you've been part of like a separate family, a separate community, and you've been living in this kind of time bubble, which really isn't a time bubble because, of course, there's been further interpretations and developments. It'll happen whether you like it or not, but it's happened under the direction of whoever the leadership happens to be of that group. And you're coming back into the living, breathing, dynamic family of God that is the church, and things change, and so much of your mentality may shift about certain things that, again, like I said, you thought were essentials, but actually you had blown out of proportion, or you had made it an end when it was supposed to be a means. And so you have to reorder the hierarchy of truths in your mind. You have to reorder your intellect to thinking in a different way, especially since it's not self-directed Catholicism anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you still have a responsibility? I mean, again, the accusation that you're just turning your brain off is a stupid one, because that's the same one that the Protestants say. They say, "Oh, you Catholics, you just go and you turn your brain off," and traditionalists are making the same claim about those of us who want to be faithful. "Oh, you're just turning your brain off and going in." No, of course, we still recognize an unfaithful bishop or an unfaithful priest, or that we have to, or maybe a bad liturgy or a bad situation, and you
Mm-hmm.
still have to adapt and improvise and take care of things in that way. But we aren't directing our own religion anymore. We aren't directing our own faith and like rejecting rejecting our bishop,
Yeah.
or rejecting our pope, or rejecting a council, or rejecting a missal, right?
Yeah.
There's a big difference in that. But what we're doing is we're actually coming and we're starting to have a Catholic frame of mind. And that's one that is of fidelity, of faithful submission to the church, to those in authority who God has given the keys of the kingdom, in the persons of our Holy Father in Rome for the Universal Church, and then as well as the Bishop of our diocese, who represents Christ for us. So that's a different way of thinking, and then of course there's a healing that often comes in your memory, memory and memories you might have, emotions,
Mm-hmm.
a reordering of your will. So yeah, there is definitely a conversion process. Like I said, my experience, it took me years before getting to that point of embracing in gratitude the gift of the church, the gift of the Reformed rites, rather than distrusting the church. I still had not fully trusted the church. And I'd say that's probably the one thing that people are going to have to heal over, is trust, because you have been programmed, according to the traditionalist narrative, that everything's controlled by Freemasons, controlled by Jews, controlled by communists. There's infiltration everywhere. You can't trust anyone, right? Everywhere is an abuse. Abuse is everywhere, right? Idolatry in the Vatican, worshiping a Pachamama, right?
Yeah.
These ridiculous spins on events that take place that were either completely harmless, or just completely misunderstood, or maybe even got a little bit out of hand. I mean, an example, for example, was Assisi. People are so scandalized. They put a Buddha on the altar, and that just goes to show, right? And Cardinal Arinze, who I think, is it Francis Arinze? Cardinal, though his last name is Arinze. He was a famous cardinal, but he used to be prefect for the Congregation of the Sacraments, of the Liturgy and the Sacraments, a Congregation of Divine Worship. And he was very well known because he stood up for Catholics' rights to receive kneeling and on the tongue, right?
Yeah.
And he was known as being a very faithful, very orthodox bishop.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually the bishop that was put in charge and helped coordinate the prayer for peace at Assisi. He worked with John Paul II to do that, and in his autobiography, interview that is out there that you can read, I'm trying to remember what it's called. Might be An Invisible Hand. I think might be the title of that one. He gives an account of the events that happened at Assisi. And one of them was that unfortunately, when you have all these people coming together, sometimes things get out of hand, right? I mean, things aren't organized properly, or somebody's letting down the job, and that was a complete accident. It wasn't something the Buddhists were trying to do to like insult the Catholics or disrespect the Catholics. They just thought it was a platform, right? Like a table they could put their Buddha up on.
Yeah.
So it was just a complete mistake. And we have to understand that there's going to be that kind of human error, and
Yeah.
have mercy. But no, the traditionalist narrative is that the popes were disrespecting God. Archbishop Lefebvre, there was idolatry in the Vatican, just like they're saying about Pope Francis with the whole Pachamama thing.
Right.
And it's completely unfair, and it's a rigid and narrow perspective on things, and it takes time to break out of that and to learn to trust the church again.